Throughout the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union sent submarines into hostile waters. These stealthy machines would determine the winner in a nuclear conflict. Submarine secrecy is imperative for both sides. Undersea technology and strategy must be protected. When a Soviet submarine sinks in 1968, the United States has its best chance of unraveling the secrets behind the Iron Curtain. This story is classified in the USSR and USA, a tale of American ingenuity and deadly Soviet retaliation. A high-stakes game of point and counterpoint, with the world going to the winner. August 9th, 1974, Washington, D.C. U.S. President Richard Nixon was a Cold War titan. Now he faces impeachment for his part in the Watergate scandal. Nixon is forced to resign.
Because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
All eyes are on Nixon. None are on a spy mission he has personally orchestrated, underway at this very moment in the distant North Pacific. A gigantic ship, built and owned by the CIA, has come to secretly raise a Soviet submarine. The mission is the final chapter in a 6-year-long desperate quest to learn how the Soviets would use their submarines in an all-out nuclear war. Few at the time comprehend that the operation will transform the way America fights the Cold War beneath the sea. Fewer still understand that the Soviets are going through their own transformation by other cunning means. This is the untold account of 7 critical years of change and how espionage kept the Cold War cold. The story begins on the Soviet side of the Pacific. It is February 1968 in Vladivostok, USSR. From this eastern Soviet seaport, the nuclear-armed diesel submarine K-129 prepares to depart on a 2-month mission. Her task is to aim missiles at America. The sub carries the power to kill millions. The Soviets are building up arms, readying for the unthinkable, a nuclear conflict which humanity may not survive.
Let me say it straight. We assumed that a nuclear conflict could erupt. Each of the two sides thought that the other could resort to the use of nuclear weapons, and therefore adequate steps had to be taken in advance, which would enable us to prevent a thermonuclear war, or in case it did start, to deliver a proper, adequate blow to the enemy.
Small, diesel-powered, and deadly, K-129 carries 3 nuclear missiles, each with a range of 700 miles and a common purpose: to kill Americans in the event of war. This is the hot side of the Cold War. Since 1960, the United States has 41 missile-carrying subs within striking distance of Communist Russia. The Soviets rush to catch up. By 1968, 23 subs, such as K-129, are in the blue waters of the world. America has a new threat lurking off its shores.
The Soviet submarine force really didn't begin to operate in the blue water until the very early 60s, and it didn't mature that much until possibly 1966, 67, 68, in that time frame. And it was after that that it became a considerable concern, both to the U.S. Navy and certainly the U.S. military.
The U.S. Navy needs to understand if the Soviet submarine threat is as dangerous as their own. If they have the ability to annihilate America, the United States is not yet sure what role Soviet submarines will play in a nuclear conflict.
And part of that was driven by our understanding of, our limited understanding of what they were trying to do. And it was interesting days. In fact, our understanding of Soviet submarine warfare in the early 70s was driven by U.S. submarine officers who looked at the problem through their own biases, through their own red, white, and blue glasses.
America faces the war beneath the sea with a potentially lethal combination: a shortage of intelligence and paranoia. K-129's captain is Vladimir Kobzar, an ace in communist Russia's highly trained submarine elite. 98 men are under his command. They are young, alert, and fiercely loyal to the communist cause. K-129 First Officer Alexander Zhuravin sacrifices family life for his Cold War duty.
What do I remember of our life? We were young, we were happy, we had love. So all hardships were easy to handle, and we took things as they came. Submariners' life was very hard, and it was especially hard for their families. We rarely saw our husbands, who spent most of their time at sea. But when they would return, our reunions would be so joyful and happy that the months spent apart would soon be forgotten, and the happiness would stay.
Another K-129 officer, Nikolai Orekhov, allows his young son to tour the deadly sub before departing from Vladivostok.
I happened to be on board the submarine the day before she went out to sea. I remember that day very well. It was the 50th anniversary of the Soviet Army and Navy. The next morning, on the 24th of February, 1968, the sub left the pier. That was the last time I said goodbye to my father.
Dawn, February 24th. K-129's numbers are painted over. Kobzar takes his submarine out of harbor toward America.
Старший механик, доложить обстановку по службам. Отбой учебной тревоги! Отбой учебной тревоги! Старший помощник! Осмотреться в отсеках! Есть осмотреться в отсеках! Первый отсек! Второй отсек! Второй отсек! Третий отсек!
It will take him 2 weeks to reach his target, Hawaii. Hawaii is a frontline target in a nuclear war with the Soviet Union. If given the order, K-129 will fire 3 missiles at the American island chain. For 12 days, K-129 makes her way across the Pacific.
Course 151.
Captain Kobzar keeps a lookout for his mortal enemies, American submarines and warships. The crew keeps a constant vigil, rotating through the duties which make K-129 a floating missile platform. Each day is consumed by work and rare moments of leisure that pass time on these long patrols. K-129 must surface almost half of every day at sea. The submarine runs on battery power while submerged, and these batteries are recharged by diesel engines on the surface. These are tense moments when the nuclear-armed sub is most vulnerable to detection. On March 8, 1968, K-129 is 1,700 miles northwest of Hawaii, about to surface for the unavoidable routine of recharging her batteries. All seems normal in the control room. It is a maneuver Captain Kobzar and his crew have conducted hundreds of times before. But this time, something goes wrong. A massive explosion in the middle of the sub blows a 10-foot hole in the hull of K-129. Captain Kobzar has seconds to react. The sub is sinking fast. There's not even time to send an SOS. 98 men face the violence of a submarine being ripped apart. There is no chance of escape as K-129 is gripped in the pressure of the deep. K-129 plummets 18,000 feet down, crashing nose first into the seabed. "98 men are dead. It is the worst loss of life in the history of the Soviet submarine fleet." Losing a submarine armed with nuclear missiles is a disaster Moscow will not accept. Admiral Nikolai Amelko is the man held accountable.
АК-129, я помню все.
I remember everything about K-129.
Как мы реагировали? Реагировали мы, конечно, тяжело.
What was our reaction? Of course, our reaction was painful. When the sub failed to send in her special signal that everything was okay, we were very alarmed. And I, as a fleet commodore, ordered a search for the sub along her last known route. After we lost radio communication with K-129, I was sent to search for that submarine. I was personally in command of 11 ships. We went to look for her down the route of her deployment.
Betts sails straight into a North Pacific storm. He does not know that the submarine is lost, only that he will never find it in the tempest. The storm abates and there is a new enemy, American aircraft buzzing overhead.
Почему, значит, у нас сложилось такое впечатление, что американцы знают...
Why did we begin to think that the Americans knew we were looking for a sub? Because the closer we came to the site of her death, the more intensive their overflights were. They were flying ever faster and lower, actually so low that they were just about falling into the sea.
Admiral Amelko has an explanation for the presence of the planes. To this day, he believes an American sub collided with K-129.
Среди многих версий.
Among the many theories about the cause of her death, I and many others hold that she sank after being rammed by the American submarine, the Swordfish.
Подводная лодка Swordfish. Американская. Вот поэтому.
This is why the Americans knew where she had sunk.
Amelko blames swordfish. But in Yokosuka, Japan, just 9 days after K-129 crashed to the bottom, a Japanese photographer snaps this photo of swordfish. She shows no sign of damage. Soviet officials will not give up their conviction that this submarine killed 98 men. The seed of suspicion is planted. On April 28, 1968, the search for K-129 is called off. The Soviet fleet has no way to find its lost submarine.
And that was how it all ended. The government issued a decree on compensating the families and providing us with apartments in the cities of our choice. And a new life began. It was a very different life now, without the husbands, without the fathers, without the breadwinners.
April 1968, Washington, D.C. The Soviets have lost a submarine. Only Washington knows where it is. The U.S. Navy says this information did not come from their submarine Swordfish, but from a top-secret spy system called SOSUS. Hundreds of thousands of listening devices track the movements of Russian submarines. One of these microphones has heard and pinpointed K-129's final plunge. The secrets of Soviet submarine hardware, communications, and weaponry are a temptation too great for the United States to resist. Most important are the deadly missiles. So far, U.S. analysts have only been able to glimpse them at a distance in Soviet military parades. The United States decides to find K-129, photograph her, and if possible, bring her secrets back to America. The search must be completely secret. K-129 is in international waters. American intrusion could be seen as an act of war. U.S. President Lyndon Johnson decides it's worth the risk, but he must keep his plan within a small circle of experts. One of those experts is Dr. John Craven, head of a mysterious Navy bureau called Special Projects.
In the 1960s, I was director of the Deep Submergence Systems Project, the Deep Submergence Rescue Vehicle, large object salvage, and classified at the time a number of intelligence projects. The naval submarine intelligence people began to believe that perhaps there was technology that they could use to carry out a program that they had long wanted to carry out, which was to go and search and find hardware on the deepest part of the ocean that was of great intelligence value. So they called me in and asked me if I thought that my office and my project could modify existing submarines for this intelligence mission, a deep submergence intelligence mission.
Craven's plan is to equip a submarine with a deep-sea camera. His choice is Halibut, a nuclear-powered sub built in 1959, designed to launch short-range missiles from her deck.
The first time an atom-propelled sub has fired a missile. The vapor trail will identify the Regulus among its escort, which has taken over its guidance after the Halibut performed her launching and initial guidance mission completely on her own.
Halibut is made obsolete in just 1 year when the Navy perfects Polaris, undersea long-range missile launches in 1960. Halibut disappears. The sub is secretly taken to Hawaii for a new mission. Halibut has a large hangar in her bow, once used to store missiles. This hangar now becomes a floating, stealthy, deep-sea lab.
And so we modified a first submarine, the submarine Halibut, which is one that I chose from about 5 or 6 that were made available. And I chose Halibut because it had a large hangar in which we could put large amounts of equipment.
Roger Dunham is a young submariner assigned to the strange submarine. To this day, he is forbidden under a security oath to mention the sub by name.
I received orders to this vessel, which I will call the Viperfish. I'm not really cleared to discuss the actual name of the vessel. In submarine school, when I received these orders, it was to this vessel that really had the strangest history and very little open understanding among the men in the Navy as to what it actually did. It was right from the start a mystery vessel that did things that were not known. I walked up to the edge of the dry dock and was absolutely stunned. It was the biggest, the ugliest, the nastiest looking evil thing I have ever seen in my life.
The hangar is accessible by a huge door on the top deck. The crew dubs it the Bat Cave. Craven's designers cut bay doors in the sub's bottom, which open and close. Through this hole, a complex photography vehicle known simply as the Fish can descend to 20,000 feet. Halibut is designed to maintain a stable position 300 feet below the surface, with the Fish 3 miles below her. Halibut need never surface. A surface vessel would be detected by the Russians. Craven's team are an unusual group for a submarine mission. Mysterious figures, forbidden to talk about the operation with Halibut's crew.
They were a mixture of people that were remarkable because of their civilian status, mixed together with military status that had very little resemblance to what most submariners would be likely to carry as credentials on most operating submarines in the fleet. There were men with varied backgrounds, the details of which were never made available to any of us.
Halibut is under the command of Captain Charles Moore. Moore is a quiet, impressive man with deep respect for the dead Soviet sailors of K-129. He has direct orders from the President to say nothing to his crew about his mission. The stakes are too high.
The knowledge of the Halibut mission and the knowledge of the Halibut results were down on a single page that you could probably count on the fingers of your hand. When the mission went out, the only people that were aware of the mission was the captain and the executive officer, and perhaps an intelligence officer that might have been aboard.
Even the sub's navigator does not know why he's taking the sub to the mid-Pacific, or why he's been ordered to fabricate a false chart for Halibut's crewmen. July 15th, 1968. Halibut departs Pearl Harbor. Her numbers are painted over. She's ready for her mission. 100 submariners begin a voyage of discovery on a ghost ship that the world does not even know exists. Only a handful of these men know where they are going or what they seek. One week after leaving Pearl Harbor, Halibut has arrived at its destination. The hunt for K-129 has begun. The task is anything but easy. Halibut's information is approximate. The Fish must scour the ocean floor 18,000 feet down in a 5-mile radius. This secret search is deeper and more difficult than any ever conducted.
If you picture an airliner flying at 20,000 feet, lowering a device on the end of a cable out that great distance all the way down to near the ground to maintain the height above the ground of that fish-like object to 10 feet or so and keep that in a coordinated manner that would allow the search of a large area of ground, you get some concept of what the technological difficulties were.
Halibut trawls back and forth, the fish fully extended on its tether 10 feet from the ocean floor. Photograph after photograph is taken. Halibut's photographer has not been told what he's looking for. He develops thousands of meaningless photographs of an alien undersea world. Then, the men of Halibut fear their secret mission is no longer secret. A surface vessel is pelting the waters with sonar charges called sonobuoys. It can only be the Soviets.
I believe there was a search underway, perhaps to find what they had lost, but also to find any others who may be in that same area. The noises we heard were detonations.
Captain Moore has hidden his sub in a layer of cool water. The warm water above reflects the Soviet sonar charges, hiding Halibut. Still, only the American president and a few others know of Halibut's secret mission. No one will save her crew if the Soviets detect the sub.
I think few of us had any doubts about what they would have done to us if they had been able to find we were in that part of the ocean at that time.
The Soviets persist for 2 weeks. Halibut evades her Russian hunters. The men of Halibut know nothing of the confusion and fear in Moscow. The Soviets are blind and bewildered. The decision is made to wipe K-129's existence from history. No one must know that a nuclear-armed Soviet sub and 98 men are lost. Even families are denied the truth.
Everything was kept secret. The officials were telling us lies. They stated that none of our subs had been lost at all. We didn't know how to raise our children. We didn't know what to tell them. Where did their fathers die? Why have they disappeared? Whether they died in a drunken scuffle, or run over by a bus, or what? Just pronounced dead, that's it.
It is a Cold War irony that an American submarine on a secret mission is the Russian widow's only hope to learn the truth about her husband. August 20th, 1968. Captain Moore is summoned to the Bat Cave. K-129 is found. The submarine has a 10-foot hole in her hull. The Batcave team speculates the cause was an explosion in K-129's batteries. Then the experts turn their attention to their crucial mission, the first up-close examination of a Soviet submarine with nuclear missiles to be taken home to the president.
When the photographer first photographed it, he became aware that they were photographing a downed submarine, and he was then cleared at some level, but he was not aware of the significance of what he was photographing. Then when the information was gathered, even after a cursory inspection, it was deemed sufficiently high intelligence that it did not go through the normal intelligence review channels, but went directly to the top.
President Lyndon Johnson has taken a risk with Halibut's dangerous quest and won. 32,000 pictures are taken of K-129. To this day, not one of them has been declassified. After 3 weeks over the wreck of K-129, Halibut goes home to Pearl Harbor. Captain Moore congratulates the crew on a job well done, but what their mission was, the crew does not know. Captain Moore is greeted at the pier by a U.S. intelligence officer. He hands over a briefcase filled with photographs. These are taken to President Johnson. Johnson honors the crew with a Presidential Unit Citation, the highest award a submariner can receive. The irony is, not one man knows why he has been decorated. Captain Moore receives the Distinguished Service Medal, the first submariner of his rank to receive the commendation since 1914. Dr. John Craven is given the Defense Department's Distinguished Civilian Service Award, the highest honor of its kind. Halibut crewman Roger Dunham has tried and failed to get the Navy to admit Halibut's secret triumph. He still wonders why.
Why is it that what we did is remaining so secret? I had many considerations when I went into it, that there could be a variety of different reasons that would be some of them less than honorable, and I have not been able to support that with any substantive information from anybody I've spoken to, that there was some dark secret that we did not want the public to know about.
The secret story is not over yet.
I, Richard Billhouse Nixon, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States. So help me God.
January 1969. Richard Nixon replaces Lyndon Johnson as President of the United States. Nixon is shown the Halibut photos. Nixon wants more. He wants the sub K-129 itself.
When we had finished the Halibut mission, it was obviously an intelligence coup, and we came back and reported it to the highest levels of intelligence. At that time, the CIA decided that they would go and recover the submarine.
The covert operation is codenamed Project Jennifer. The front is an eccentric billionaire, a famous aviator and CIA operative, Howard Hughes. The cover story is classic, sensational Hughes. Deep ocean mining for precious metals. Between 1968 and 1974, Hughes builds Glomar Explorer. It is hailed as the most advanced mining vessel in the world. What the public does not know is that the ship's $500 million price tag has been paid not by Hughes, but by a CIA black fund. The inside of Glomar Explorer holds a secret which has nothing to do with mining. The moon pool, a cavernous empty space into which K-129 is to be raised. Dr. Jack Rutten was a member of the CIA's hand-picked team for the mission. Rutten still cannot speak about the specifics of his assignment.
We were told after we had been briefed that this was a highly classified mission, that we were not to even inform our families about the project. We were to stick with the story of deep ocean mining project. We signed an agreement with the United States government at that time that we would not divulge under codes that existed for significantly jeopardizing national security.
On July 11th, 1974, Project Jennifer begins. The huge ship hovers over the site of K-129. 300 lengths of steel pipe, each piece as long as a Greyhound bus, are adjoined to form the umbilical cord between the ship and the salvage vehicle, nicknamed Clementine. Descending at 1 inch every second, it takes Clementine 2 days to reach K-129. The operation is maintained in a control room adjacent to the moon pool.
Ancillary pump is normal.
Your levels too.
Check claw. Absolutely. Claw is status quo. Buoyancy numbers are normal.
The steel arms capture K-129. The two-day ascent begins.
Can you check the ancillary power, please?
All right, check it.
5,000 feet from the bottom, the mission takes a terrible turn. Clementine's arms snap. 2/3 of the submarine fall back to the ocean floor. The huge Glomar Explorer nearly capsizes, having lost its heavy prize.
Most of the crew thought that we were going to destroy the ship with the load being suddenly released, and there was great apprehension.
Glomar Explorer regains her balance. The crippled Clementine continues to bring a fragment of K-129 toward the surface. The remaining forward third is brought on board for examination. It tests highly radioactive. CIA men in protective suits dismantle the submarine. K-129's nuclear weaponry is taken apart piece by piece. The shattered remains also produce another prize. Communications gear, the sub's secret link to Moscow, falls into American hands.
When we had it in the moon pool and they had drained the water from the moon pool after recovery of the submarine, it looked almost exactly like, it was about as big as a 737 though. It was a pretty good size.
The remains of 6 Soviet seamen are also recovered. They are buried at sea in Soviet tradition. The ritual is filmed with hopes that should the Cold War ever come to an end, there is proof of American respect for the unfortunate dead. Clementine is disabled, but the CIA still wants more. Plans are made to return the following year for a final mission to retrieve K-129. But on March 15, 1975, the CIA's ambitions are destroyed. Documents are leaked to the press after having been stolen in a mysterious robbery at the Hughes headquarters. By the time the story is revealed, Hughes is on his deathbed. The robbery remains unsolved. Soviet leaders stand by helpless and furious, their long-lost submarine and 98 missing men exposed by the American media. They can do nothing.
Неправомерно было, конечно, поступок американцев.
The Americans had no legal right to raise a foreign submarine in neutral waters, especially since it was already clear that it was our submarine.
Amelko claims that despite America's 6-year operation, K-129 had no secrets to reveal.
Ни коды, ни ракеты.
The Americans got neither the secret codes nor the missiles. Whenever coded documents are lost, the codes are changed immediately. So, even if some documents had gotten into American hands, they would have been useless.
The U.S. Navy has a different opinion. Soviet submarine communications have been intercepted by Navy intelligence for 2 decades. K-129 helps interpret these old messages to understand why, when, and where the Soviets send their subs.
There's more to meets the eye, if you will, in a sunken submarine. I can't go into details because even to this day, despite the fact that the project to raise that sunken gulf was exposed by the media in 1974. To this day, much of it remains quite sensitive. I will say that since World War II, it was, in my view, one of the 2 or 3 greatest intelligence achievements. We were able to almost do what we set out to do in complete secrecy. We learned a lot. It was superbly planned and executed, and I can't say enough about the people who were involved. It was a tremendous success.
America basks in what it believes to be an unbeatable intelligence advantage. Unknown to the United States, the Soviet KGB retaliates with a crushing countermeasure. It takes the U.S. Navy 20 years to learn there is a traitor in its midst.
And that all changed in a flash when John Walker was arrested for espionage. And we found out what he had been giving the Soviets for those many years, undermining what we thought was an advantage.
John Walker is an American, a former submariner who from 1968 until his arrest in 1985 disclosed to the KGB the whereabouts of American missile submarines.
Operationally speaking, technology speaking, politically speaking, we didn't know how much we were hemorrhaging, and we thought we knew what was going on. We did learn a lot, but boy, they sure did, and they did it with such great leverage.
Walker recruits his brother, his son, and his best friend. His treachery could have caused a Third World War that America might have lost.
We were wondering why they didn't quiet their submarines more. Well, in retrospect, maybe they didn't have to quiet their submarines so much because John Walker had sold them the cryptographic keys that would allow them to pay attention to what we were doing to find their submarines. What they gained from the spies in those days was equal to stealth bombers, as far as I'm concerned, with regard to leverage in a wartime environment.
For the Soviets, Walker's submarine secrets provided reassurance during Cold War flashpoints.
Но и тогда, когда мы обладали достоверной информацией по тем иным направлениям.
So, whenever we had true intelligence on American activities of this or that kind, it would reassure us that a nuclear war was not about to start. And that was something positive.
America wins one hand, the Soviets the next. Undersea deterrence is jeopardized by spy operations on both sides of the conflict. Only now, at the end of the deadly game, are the players realizing how much espionage set the rules for the nuclear submarine battlefield. For Admiral Nikolai Amelko, the game is over. It's time to forget.
Во-первых, прошло 30 лет.
30 years have passed. Today, our two countries are on such terms that to stir up a 30-year-old controversy and excite people, especially young people, I think it is unnecessary and even harmful. Let us forget about it. I mean, not really forget, but leave it in past history, in the history of the Cold War, which ended a long time ago. There is no need to stir up the case now.
Irina Zhuravina can never forget.
Муж мой по характеру настолько был жизнелюбив, настолько энергичен и
My husband loved life so much, and when this happened, those of his friends who stayed alive kept reassuring me. Sasha could not die, don't believe it. Everybody would die but him. He'd survive, he'd swim out. He cannot die. His character won't let him. He's destined to live. I have lived with this hope for years. I have waited and waited. It's been 30 years, but he's not come back, and I'm still alone.
K-129's loss is not officially recognized by the United States or the former Soviet Union. The silence is a practical solution to an incident neither side wants to remember. The loss of 98 men is a bitter episode in a secret war, better left unspoken.